Thank you all very much. I have some bad news and some good news. Bad news is I'm going to continue to speak in English. The good news is I'm not Trump. No tantrums, no covfefe, guaranteed. So, let me start off a little bit with what do we mean by soft landing, especially in business, because for you, you are the future. You are the next businesses. You are the next growth that's going to happen not only here in the Baltics, but also in Europe, America, Asia, and even Australia. And we'll throw in New Zealand just for the sake of it. So be bold, go out. Now, good example of what can happen when you go out, but you forget to get dressed from your home before you go out. I had a client from Germany, very successful manufacturer of special plates, metal plates that went on auto parts. And they tried to go into the US. They contacted me and said, we tried it 3 years ago, total failure. What can we do? Our clients really want us to be manufacturing in the US. So I said, well, tell me what you did. So they said, well, first thing, we assumed that because we make the very best product, after all, we're German, so therefore we will charge more than anyone else. Americans don't think that way. They want something that meets the specifications, but also is lower than what some of the other parts will be. Secondly, so that was a problem. Then they said, well, I said, where did you locate your facility? They said, Kansas City. Now, if you're not familiar with America, Kansas City is basically right in the middle. And I said, why? Well, because it's in the middle. Well, where are your customers? Oh, they're up in Detroit and the automotive, and they're down in the South. Okay, so there's an example. Understand what you need to go out into the world with your product and your business. You've heard a little bit about it today. I'm going to kind of give you a checklist, if you will, that will help you when you're making your decisions. So, and is this on? Let's try that. There we go. So let me make sure. Now we're rolling. So, leaving your comfort zone. Your comfort zone, what is that? That is, you started your business here in the Baltics, you're doing business here. If you're successful, you've reached what we call stage 1, which is you're making money, most importantly. Stage 2 is when you expand outside of your market, and that is where it comes to your comfort zone. We all hate to leave our comfort zone. If one of our partners or somebody says, I want to move this chair from here to here. Oh, no, wait a minute. It's good there. I'm used to that. Or if somebody tells you, you should go to Oslo because there's a market there. I don't know. I'm happy doing my work right here. So leaving your comfort zone. Now, there are things that you need to do, and this is very key for any decision in looking outside of your own area. Strategic decisions. Site selection, where are you going to go? Then, what kind of startup are you going to have? Facilities, maintenance, all of that. Financial, we've heard a lot about where you're going to get money. Professional services, you need legal help, you need accounting, you need all of that. Healthcare, you may be fine here in Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, but if you're going to the US, you need to make sure you've got a good health plan because we don't have universal health care yet. Maybe that'll change. And then key management. Who moves to a new location? Do you yourself go? Do you send somebody? Or do you find somebody in that new location who will operate your company for you? Now let's take these very specifically. And these are the questions, that checklist that I told you, that you need to answer. First one is in strategic decisions. Where is our existing market? Okay, maybe it's mostly the Baltics, across in Finland, the other Nordic countries. But where are the future markets? My product is something that people want, but where are they? Who, like we just heard about the birch sap. Although when I grew up, we used to have a soft drink called birch beer. It wasn't beer, it was really like root beer or birch beer. So I'm familiar with a little bit of that. But the question is, where is your market? Now, is it the right time to enter the U.S. market? And by that, I mean, is it good? Is the market going up for you in your particular area, your particular business, or is it on a downflow? So you need to make sure it's the right time. If you're going to be bringing something into the new market, are you going to manufacture it there? Are you going to bring it in from here? You need to answer that question. Source locally or import raw materials. Do you start with a sales office? Many of you, I've had many clients who say to me, okay, I want to find a partner in America and I want them to sell my product to everybody. Okay, well, you need first to find somebody who understands what your product is, or your service for that matter. It's not just hard products. And you need to have them be enthusiastic about selling your product. The other option is you're fairly successful, you're manufacturing, you're building, whatever it is here now, but the type of product that you're going to bring into the U.S. especially is something that could be subject to tariffs, or for many American companies that are going to buy a part, 90%, especially for example automobiles, have to be American made. So many international companies that I work with now are coming in to the U.S. because they have to. If they want to sell their product, they have to make it in the U.S. So to do that, do you manufacture on site or do you set up a joint venture? These are all questions that you need to ask. Site selection, the story I told you before. What U.S. regions offer the most advantages? The biggest challenge that I find, and you all look extremely educated, so I don't think it'll affect anybody here, but I call it geographically challenged. Now, we know in America, our university graduates still don't know the difference between Amsterdam and Boulder Dam, which is near Las Vegas. The only thing they know is both are pretty high. However, I find that many Europeans are challenged in the same way because of the spatial difference that you have between going from Riga to Tallinn or to Vilnius. Even in countries like Paris or Germany, you can be from one place to another. Now, this is another Americanism. We don't use distance. We talk about time. It takes me 2 hours to go here, 3 hours to go there. So you need to know where your customers are. And you also need to decide you can't serve, in most cases, the whole country. It's pretty damn big. From New York to Los Angeles, if you were driving, it would take you 5 days. If you were flying, it takes you 5 hours. So you don't want to locate in a place where your customers can't get to you or you can't ship to them in a timely fashion. Okay, which locations have the lowest cost? Typically, for most of you, you think of the U.S. from what you see in the movies or on TV. Oh, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and of course Miami and the mouse, that's Florida, Mickey Mouse. But the key thing is, because we're so big, for example, if you are in the biofield, you say, oh, I need to be in Boston because that's where all the medical device and research is underway. If you're in IT or ITC, as many say, well, I need to be in Silicon Valley. That's where everybody's making millions of dollars. Or whatever, you know. So the point is, if you, New York, finance, if you choose those cities, you are a tiny grain of sand on a big beach. And it's going to cost you double what it would cost you in some of the second-tier cities like Austin, Texas, Raleigh, North Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida, Orlando, Atlanta, definitely, absolutely. Atlanta is a fantastic place. In fact, thank you, whoever said that, because I can't see a thing. The point is that the Southeast U.S. is the fastest growing region in the country, in the U.S. Well, thank you. We can do a reclama for you if you want to do that. But the key that you need to know is, where do you find your sweet spot? By that I mean where you can locate and you can also reach the most customers. What you want to do when you're first starting out in a new location is go after the low-hanging fruit. Those are the customers that you know are interested in you, that you can reach, that you can sell, and then you branch out from there. Now, as I say, it's a big country. Where do you go? If you look at some of these locations, you know, here you are up here, it would take you 2.5 to 3 hours to fly from here to New York. And I said that 5 hours across. The Southeast market right now is Virginia, really the Carolinas across, down over, including Texas, in this area. It's the largest population. In fact, if you're not familiar, this is the Mississippi River. 65% of the U.S. population lives east of the Mississippi. They call these, unfortunately, the flyover states, and then you have California. So you need to do your research. Now, startup and facilities. You've gotten that done. Now you want to say, how do I start up? Do I own or do I lease a facility? Do I rent? Now this is if you're opening up a manufacturing facility. If you're doing a partnership, those facilities will probably be there with your partner. Next is, do you manufacture or distribute? It depends on what your product is. If you need to make it in America, you can actually manufacture and distribute from a small to medium-sized facility. Do you use a third-party logistics? You know, again, if you're bringing something into the country to sell, you have to ship it in. Unless it's super expensive, you're not going to use air cargo. You're going to be coming by ocean carrier. You need to know where the ports, the best ports are. How quickly can you get your product from a port? Should you be in a free trade zone where you don't pay any duties until it goes out into the country as a finished product? Where's the workforce going to come from? One of the problems that many people have is, oh, well, I need 3 engineers and 2 IT specialists. Well, in some areas, like the big cities, you are going to, first off, find a hard time finding them. Secondly, the Googles of the world and the Amazons are going to be paying 3 times what you hoped to pay for those services. So again, you go to the lower cost areas, you can get the kind of labor you want. Training workers. Do you get help from somebody in the country you're looking at, or do you bring them here? Many companies will bring somebody over to learn the process, and then they'll go back and train the rest of the people. Can you train the people in your way? Maybe, maybe not. Cultures are different. You need to understand the different cultures in the work environment. The typical American will come up to you and say, "Hi, my name's Mike. Let's talk about your product. Never mind the details. We'll get to that later." In Germany, it's we will talk specifically about the engineering, and then we will go to discuss the concrete plans. So again, it's a different culture, different way of knowing. It's not saying you can't do it, but you should know what you're doing. Financial incentives. Most of you probably know, but you can locate in many communities, both in Europe and in the US, if usually you're going to create 10 or more jobs. With that, they will provide tax rebates or incentives, reducing your tax. They'll even provide some other various incentives depending upon, excuse me, how many jobs you're going to create. So be aware that that's something you should look at. Question is, are local taxes always good? Local low taxes always good? Sometimes you can go into an area where the cost of locating there is very low, and your taxes on your building and your product are low, but then you find out that the quality of the labor isn't really good either, or it's very difficult to get your product out. So you need to understand that. What do you do if you need assistance for visas? Of course, you know that the United States right now is open arms, welcoming to everybody. Come into the country as long as you're from Norway. But the situation is that it's very important and very difficult right now to get the L1s and H1 work visas that's required to come into the country. It's not that it's difficult because of who you are, it's difficult because of all the bureaucracy. So you need help in doing that. Healthcare. What kind of insurance did you have? Because we have individual as well as insurance that a company needs to provide for its employees. How do you identify the best employers or best hospitals? Benefits. What do you give to your employees? Do you cover the employee? Do you cover the family? Again, questions you need to ask. If you've got a senior manager coming in, what type of visa do they need? Banking. I had a client recently from Poland, and I took them through the whole process, and they bought 2 cars for their 2 senior staff that came in. I got a call about 2 weeks later after everything was settled, and they said, well, we're in our insurance agent's office because you have to have insurance on your automobile. And they said, they won't accept our credit card. Why? Because it's foreign, sir. Typical American banking. Anything outside the country is considered foreign. So you need to have a good banking relationship with an American bank that will have, hopefully, connections to your European banks. And with that, you can get the kind of financing you need to get a car, to perhaps even get a loan for your business. But you need to understand these kind of things. Do you buy a car, as I mentioned? Unlike Europe, and especially in the Netherlands and France, not everybody drives lease cars. In fact, rarely do people have lease cars. It's primarily the senior management. Should you buy a home? If you're coming over for 2 or 3 years, or you're planning to stay longer, should you buy a home? Should you lease? Those are decisions you need to make. You also need to know where to buy in the local communities. So let's kind of step back a little bit, and I've thrown a lot of things at you, but these are important things for you to know. Now, I'm here today, and I'm very pleased to be here in association with the Baltic American Chamber of Commerce. And we've put together an approach that will provide these soft landing services for you. And that's something that you can talk to. Inga is back there. I see her barely, but she's representing the chamber. If you're thinking about coming to the U.S., let her know, let us know. We can help you with all of these services. Now, having said that, we're Americans, so everything's fee-based, but it's not out of line. There's no such thing as a free lunch. I think you all know that. But it's better to put a little bit of financial effort into dealing with these issues now before you get so far in that you're losing money on your business because of all of these problems that are holding back your sales. Now, as I said, one of the things that I'm so pleased that my experience here in the Baltics have shown me, that you are people that are willing to take a risk for a good reward. So don't be afraid to take those first steps. As I said early on, get dressed before you go out. Understand what you need to have and what you need to know before you take this first step that will cost you 10 times as much if you make mistakes. On the other hand, being an American, which differentiates us from at least some of your European neighbors, I know I do a lot of work in the Netherlands, and they are so risk adverse, it's ridiculous. So the thing is, don't be afraid to fail. And I think it was said earlier in the leadership section that was presented to you, the only way you learn is having failed. In fact, let me give you the definition of what a consultant is. You've had a very good presentation of what a leader is. What a consultant is somebody, quite simply, who's tripped and fallen more than you have. That's it. We've done it. We've experienced. We can share with you what you should look for and what you shouldn't. Never assume anything. I've made that mistake. Well, I assume so-and-so is going to do this. I assume I can just walk in, open the door and say, I'm here, buy my product. Never assume. As I said, do your homework working with other people who know what you don't. If you're just talking to people who know everything that you know, what are you going to learn? Listen, we have a president like that, so. Make sure that someone in the country you're looking at wants to buy your product. All of these things can be done now. And I'll just end with, if you take the time and do it right, you will be successful. Thank you.